It seems that all over the place, in cities up and down the state of California, there is insanity happening. This particular set of insanity comes from the city of Oakland, California, where, if you're the victim of a crime, there's a good possibility that you'll have a worse punishment than the actual criminal. If you're a business owner in the city of Oakland, California, and somebody graffitis your business, the city has required that within 10 days you must have that graffiti removed, or you could face a fine up to $6,000, which is crazy, especially if you look at Oakland and see how many, I don't know, encampment eyesores they have camped out under the overpasses, the amount of people pooping on the streets because it's basically a mini San Francisco. All of that is ridiculous in its own right. But here is what is fascinating. Let's just say somebody criminally vandalizes your store with graffiti. If that person is caught, which the likelihood is not good, and if the woke DA actually chooses to prosecute that criminal vandalizer, well, on average, the maximum fine is not $6,000, it's $1,000. In other words, if you're the victim of the criminal vandalism graffiti, the fine that you would have to pay for not taking care of that out of your own pocket is 500% more than the actual criminal himself. Wow. Seems like an odd way to structure society. Here to talk about that and so much more is PragerU personality Alexis Wilkins, and Brandon Straka is the founder of the Walkaway campaign. Guys, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So, Alexa, I want to start with you. What kind of precedent does this set? Especially, I know California is known for just wild and wacky and crazy things, but in this case, the fine for the victim is 500% more than the maximum fine for the criminal, and that's assuming they actually get caught and prosecuted.
No, it's absolutely crazy. I think that this is just emblematic of everything that California is already putting its citizens through. It's almost the perfect example. We blame the victim more than we blame the actual criminal. And California has been just running amok for so long. Obviously, Gavin Newsom has had no control over his state, and the control he has had has been really just COVID restrictions and all of the other craziness that California has enacted on its actual, tax-paying citizens. But he's now saying, Oakland's now saying, we're going to make it your problem. Our crime that we couldn't fix, our crime that we couldn't clean up, yeah, that's going to be your problem now. And it's so emblematic of everything that goes on in California. I'm almost glad that this is making national news so that people can see this and hopefully not vote for policies that turn their state blue, because they moved to these red states and they turn them blue too. I'm sitting here in Tennessee watching things like this begin to come down the pipeline because the local governments are starting to resemble the people who have moved here. No shade to California and New York and all the coasts. We love you, but please don't vote for these policies, because this is typical. You blame the American citizen, the tax-paying business owner, for the acts of the criminal. It's absolutely insane.
We actually don't mind throwing a little bit of shade at California and New York and their very horrible policies. Brandon, again, kind of, same kind of thing. What kind of message does this send to criminals who would be graffitiing places in deep blue states? And also, too, knowing that you're a guy who travels around, is pretty well versed in red states and blue states, does that same message get sent to people who might do this sort of thing in red states?
Okay, so yeah, let's start there, please. So, Jobob, okay, first of all, let's acknowledge a few things. I used to be a liberal. Everyone knows this, right? Like, I walked away from the liberalism in the Democratic Party in around 2017, 2018. I want it to be well known. And again, like, I've traveled this great country of ours from coast to coast many, many times. I normally do not believe in, throwing certain geographical locations under the bus, because there's something to be said for just about everywhere, with the possible exception of the Bay Area. I have had a hate affair with San Francisco, Oakland, Berkeley, the whole Bay Area. Honest to God, even going back to my liberal days, like even as a staunch Obama supporter, Hillary Clinton supporter, I used to get so grossed out anytime I would have to go visit any friends, anybody in San Francisco. There's this really bizarre culture there where they're incredibly proud of any form of depravity that goes on in that city. They love the poop on the street. They love the more homeless you are, the better. The more absolutely like deranged and schizophrenic that you are chasing people down the street, they love it. They consider it to be their pride and joy in their culture. Frankly, I'm surprised that they're not erecting statues to people who graffiti and deface the city, because they seem to think that this is, something to be really, really proud of. So frankly, I find it a tiny bit confusing that they aren't embracing the graffiti and embracing defacing public property. I don't even really fully understand that. But I agree completely with my co-panelist statements. It's really weird because you're basically penalizing the people who are the victims of the crime. And this has happened in many different ways, especially in California, especially Northern California. You go into these stores like, Walgreens, whatever, everything's under lock and key, because if thieves come into your store and start stealing your property, you literally just have to stand back and let it happen. And if you try to apprehend these people, you're going to jail, not the criminals. It's just another example of California being completely backwards.
Yeah, it reminds me of that Jason Aldean song, Try That in a Small Town. Also, Brandon Straka leveling some hate speech against the Bay Area. Love it. I hate you. That's hate speech. Take it to the bank. Love it.
I'm all about telling the truth. That's what I do.
There we go.